and soon came to life again, ready for the next excitement. This turned out to be a young lieutenant who joined Morse's unit the same week he arrived. They went through orientation together, and Morse could tell that the lieutenant was drawn to him, though the lieutenant seemed unsure of his own disposition, even when he surrendered to it, with an urgency only heightened by the near impossibility of finding private time and space. In fact, he was just discovering himself, and in the process he suffered fits of self-loathing so cruel and dark that Morse feared he would do himself harm, or turn his rage outward, perhaps onto Morse himself, or bring them both to grief by bawling out a drunken confession to a fatherly colonel in some officer's bar. It didn't come to that. The lieutenant had adopted a mangy one-eared cat when they were on patrol. The cat scratched his ankle, and the scratch got infected, and instead of going for treatment, he played the fool and tried to tough it out and damn near lost his foot. He was sent home on crutches 5 months into his tour. By then, Morse was so wrung out that he felt not the slightest stirrings of pity, only relief. He had no cause for relief. Not long after returning stateside, he was called to battalion headquarters for an interview with 2 smooth, friendly men in civilian clothes who claimed to be congressional aides from the lieutenant's home district. They said there was a sensitive matter before their congressman that required closer knowledge of the lieutenant's service in Iraq, his performance in the field, his dealings with other officers, and with the troops who served under him. Their questions looped around conversationally, almost lazily, but returned again and again to his own relations with the lieutenant. Morse gave nothing away, even as he labored to appear open, unguarded. He figured these men for Army narcs, whatever else they said. They let several weeks go by before calling him to another meeting, which they canceled without warning. Morse showed up, they didn't. He was still waiting for the next summons. He had often wished that his desires served him better, but in this he supposed he wasn't unusual, that it was a lucky man indeed whose desires served him well. Yet he had hopes. Over the last few months he'd become involved with a master sergeant in division intelligence, a calm, scholarly man 5 years his senior. Though Morse could not yet think of himself as anyone's partner, he had gradually forsaken his room in the NCO quarters to spend nights and weekends at Dixon's townhouse off-post. The place was stuffed with ancient weapons and masks and chess sets Dixon had collected during his tours overseas, and at first Morse had felt a nervous sort of awe, as if he were in a museum, but that had passed. Now he liked having these things around him. He was at home there. Dixon was due to rotate overseas before long, though, and Morse would soon receive new orders himself. Then he knew it would get complicated. They would have to make certain judgments about each other and about themselves. They would have to decide how much to promise. Where this would leave them, Morse didn't know, but all that was still to come. Billy Hart's sister called again at midnight, just as Morse was turning over the orderly room to another sergeant. When he picked up and heard her voice, he pointed at the door, and the other man smiled and stepped outside. "Would you like the address, then?" Morse asked. "I guess, for all the good it'll do." Morse had already looked it up. He read it to her. "Thanks," she said. "I don't have a computer, but Sal does." "Sal?" "Sally Cronin, my cousin." "You could just go to an internet cafe." "Well, I suppose," she said skeptically. "Say, what do you mean? Maybe you could help." "I don't know exactly," Morse said. "You said it, though." "Yes, and you laughed." "That wasn't an actual laugh." "Ah, not a laugh. More like, I don't know." Morse waited. "Sorry," she said. "Look, I'm not asking for help, okay? But how come you said it, just out of curiosity?" "No reason. I didn't think it out." "Are you a friend of Billy's?" "I like Billy." "Well, it was nice, you know, a real nice thing to say." After Morse signed out, he drove to the pancake house she'd been calling from. As agreed, she was waiting by the cash register, and when he came through the door in his fatigues, he saw her take him in with a sharp, measuring glance. She straightened up, a tall woman, nearly as tall as Morse himself, with